Welcome to the Guardians podcast, where we cover anything and everything Overwatch. It's definitely high noon somewhere. No, it is high noon Stop, just stop arguing, I'm right. Let's get into the action. All right, hey, so episode 26 of The Guardians. As we tweeted out last week, I was on vacation and One Eye's been under the weather for this week. But here we are, episode 26. Going to cover some epic Overwatch news from this past week. But how's your week been going? I know I've been crazy about World of Warcraft, so that's pretty much what I've been consumed with. But I know you're probably the same.
I think I was consumed by the death. It's kind of like you mentioned last week. My girlfriend went out of town on Sunday, and literally the minute she left, I've been so sick. I'm audible today. Yesterday, you couldn't really hear me when I was talking, and if you caught this week's multi-tap podcast, that was definitely a struggle for myself. Leading that through. So. I've mainly just been trying to recover, but yeah, Legion is still surprisingly fun. I will give you that, though. I have enjoyed Season 2 of Overwatch quite a bit so far.
It's been fun. I know we did our placements this week once I got back from vacation, and I mean, we placed, I guess, where I thought we would. I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah, I was expecting bronze, so I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think about putting gold. Something, yeah. I don't know, but I mean it was whatever. Our placements, we had a draw, and that's something we're gonna cover here in the.
Yeah, that was so weird too when it happened. We were just like, oh yeah, that's how that works now.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean we'll officially cover that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
But I mean it's kind of as we do every episode. We start out with the competitive side, and because we are fanatics for competitive, and being former competitive Heroes of the Storm players ourselves, we always keep an ear to the ground on that side of things. It's kind of quiet in terms of events. However, there was a lot of roster shuffling, I noticed. Tempo Storm, which is a big Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm organization, they have an NA roster, but they also have an Australian roster, and they unveiled Tempo Storm Australia. They had a roster they picked up, and there were some rumblings that the roster was going to get shuffled, and it kind of came about in a little unconventional way. It wasn't really professional, and some stuff got leaked. Well, officially, as of 4 days ago, the players TJK, GNB, and Lush were replaced with Hey Katie, Termo, and Dorky. Now, the interesting thing about that is those three players came from Chiefs Esports, which has consistently been one of the top two squads in the Australian sector of Overwatch. It's always been them and Just a Minute Gaming, them and Untitled Spreadsheet. So I mean, the fact that half the Chiefs roster is now a part of Tempo Storm is kind of interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it affects both teams moving forward, since Chiefs just lost half their roster. So I'm sure they won't have any difficulties securing three people to replace them, but saw it coming. However, it's still kind of it could have been handled better. Some more acquisitions and roster moves. Moon L, one of Melty Esports mainstays, has been released from the roster. No replacement as of yet. Overwatch Kings, which was a big website in terms of Overwatch news, and when I was one of the first websites that popped up when Overwatch was announced. They had a roster, and it was competing in the Overwatch Open qualifiers, Atlantic Showdown, all that sort of stuff. They dropped their entire roster due to poor performance. The roster decided they were just going to disband. It's an incredibly talented roster, so when the Overwatch Open concludes after Atlanta, and the rosters unlock, you can expect to see Olba, Aetonian, RYB, Tweety, Clown, and Likely probably on top teams very, very soon. And Overwatch Kings came out and said they liked being in the Overwatch scene, and they have no plans to leave it, so they are actively looking for a new roster. Interestingly enough, like I said, you will be seeing these names soon. RYB, who was formerly Overwatch Kings, was used as a stand-in tank player for Misfits today during their Overwatch Open matches. And then another unknown player, Hidan, is trying out for a permanent spot with the team as support. Now, this is because Zapri, their old support, quit the team. And Skipjack, who a lot of people in the Overwatch competitive scene know his name, he was absent today due to his mother being gravely ill, and he decided, family comes first. So RYB was filling in for him, and Hidan is looking to replace Zapri. And then EU team Lemix was acquired by team LDLC.com, which is owned by LDLC.com. It's an online electronics store specializing in gaming accessories. They also have teams competing in Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, FIFA 16, and StarCraft 2 at the various levels of those competitive titles. The roster is Oob, Clanton, Mesomorphous, Cabal, Kratos, Digga, and Meat. And you guys who follow the scene will know that Kratos Digga is former Graviton Surge and Creation Esports, and Cabal is former Melty Esports, Melty, which is one of the top European teams. So those are our acquisitions for the week. A lot of roster shuffling, a lot of stuff, and like I said, there wasn't really a whole lot. There's stuff going on in China and Korea. Those rosters I'm not really familiar with, just because a lot of those teams aren't signed yet. Korea and China take their teams very seriously, so a lot of those rosters, there's a lot of validity, and I honestly haven't watched much of that scene. So this show we focus mostly on Oceanic and NA and EU. So with that being said, a new series, the Lenovo Cup, which is a European tourney, kicked off this week, 4 days ago on the 5th, with 8 of the top teams in the region competing for a prize pool totaling over $8,000, with $5,000 going to first, $2,000 to second, $1,000 to third. The grand finals are on the 22nd of September, and they have a little bit of a weird format to me. They have 2 groups of 4, with Group A being Reunited, Misfits, Team Endpoint, and Tornado Rocks, the Russian team. Group B being Luminosity Gaming and their new roster, Team Dignitas, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Anox. The playoffs are going to be those same 8 teams. The top 4 teams from the group stage, which as of right now is Reunited, Misfits, Luminosity, and Dignitas, with the matches still being played. It's a round-robin format. So those top 4 teams will be in the upper bracket, with the bottom 4 teams in the lower bracket of the playoffs, and it is a double elimination. I'm not quite sure how they're going to work a double elimination with a lower bracket and upper bracket. I would have thought that would already be worked out with top 4, bottom 4, but hey, I've actually caught a couple of those matches, not many, but a couple. But I mean, that's it. That's pretty much the competitive side. A lot of roster shuffling. I mean, there was a lot, and there's a lot on the lower end, that I didn't even include in the show notes, because it's like there was one guy who got passed around to 3 teams in a 2-week period, and it was like, man, like holy crap. But I mean, these teams are really shuffling after a lot of these majors. Results. I mean, some teams just feel like they could have done better, and they're just kind of reorganizing.
It's not too surprising to me. We kind of saw that. We see this a lot when we see competitive esports start out. A lot of organizations grab teams that are performing well, but a lot of teams aren't necessarily meeting each other in competitive scenes. It's only certain tournaments are starting up, so yeah. I'm not necessarily surprised by these dynamic roster changes, but it'll be nice when it calms down a lot. I'm really surprised at some of these free agents we're seeing too. I think that the next big tournament will have some real serious teams going into it with some of the roster changes going on. Yeah,
and we'll have to see, especially because the World Cup is going to happen on BlizzCon. Now, obviously, that isn't a serious thing. It's it was voted on by
bragging
the
rights, baby. Yeah. Come on, that's the most important.
Bragging rights, no monetary value, and then it's the teams from around the world competing. But it'll be interesting to see if some of these teams perform really well together, because you got Team USA is from 3 different teams, and Team Canada is also from 3 different teams. You got Surefour on Team Canada, and he's one of the big guys for Cloud9. So maybe that Team Canada will perform really well, especially with Huck on the team. So we'll have to see what happens here near the end of the year with all these roster shuffles. Once rosters unlock, if it's going to be a feeding frenzy, and some of these free agents get picked up. So, but I mean, other than that, really quiet on the competitive front. Now, there was a developer update video that came out earlier today, and they talked about high bandwidth. One of the things I know very little about, which is netcode, and they had talked about it before with tick rates and whatnot, and all that kind of stuff before. And unfortunately, I'm not super well versed, but I'll go ahead and give you guys the lowdown on what this kind of update is. Not everyone has a great connection when they play Overwatch, so the server is going to dynamically determine if you have a better or worse connection, and then change your personal responsiveness based on that to maintain a high quality of enjoyment for everyone. It's designed to bring the latency between the authoritative client, or the server, the remote client, what you see on your screen and who you're shooting at, so the enemy, and the client controlling your character closer together so it's not wildly different, and it brings all delay between the three servers more in line with each other. There's a new magical stat in the upper left-hand corner if you have your show performance data enabled, called IND, or Interpolation Delay, that monitors and displays the quality of this latency. So the result is you will be shot around corners less, you will be able to predict enemy escape patterns and moves better, and the server will hear about it and process it sooner. Now, remember, most of the abilities are still predictive, so there still will be instances where you'll get hooked by a Roadhog when you thought you dodged it, or vice versa, you'll miss a hook that might have landed, but it'll be much less often now. And also, please note, it's not rolled out on consoles yet, and certain regions of the globe don't have this high bandwidth update, but a lot of people on the NA and EU side have been noticing it and commenting a lot. So it's kind of cool that they do this a little bit differently than other FPSs, and the fact that, if you see someone on your screen, you shoot someone on your screen, more often than not, you're going to hit somebody on your screen, even though you all have different latency and ping from around the regions of your respective Overwatch area. So kind of cool.
It's felt better to me too. Like, I know we've been playing a little bit this week, and between all the little quality of life tweaks that we're seeing under the hero balances and the new netcode that's being rolled out, the game feels a lot smoother. You get in particular with Roadhog, you get a lot less of those what feel like unfair hooks, you know what I mean? So it's good. And it's nice. It shows that Blizzard is, once again continuing to be transparent about the game, talking to us about what they're doing. I think it's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, there still are instances where the server gets confused, i.e. yesterday when we were in a skirmish waiting for a competitive match. Or no, we were just waiting to play the new map, and you and I were both on Roadhog, and we hooked that Mei at the exact same time, and it slammed her into the wall, and then shot her around the wall in front of me, and you're like, what just happened? Like,
yeah, you hooked her, because I think we threw it at the same time, but the way that it got decoded in the server is I hooked it first, and then you hooked her mid-hook from my hook. Yeah. It was very strange. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in the game.
It was very odd, like, because she was standing on her wall, and all of a sudden she just whipped one direction, hit the wall, and whipped around towards me, and I was behind a corner, and I was like, okay, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was a bad time for poor Mei.
Yeah, so. But I mean, it's cool that they're constantly just kind of tweaking this, because they do. They want people who play Overwatch to have the best experience possible. So it's cool. They're constantly tweaking it, and like you said, it's that transparency. They're letting us know what they're doing, and they're keeping us informed at all times. So there were some big patch things, and we're just going to kind of skim over them a little bit if you want to go ahead and handle that. We talked about a lot of this before when it was on the PvE, but we'll just kind of rehash some stuff because it kind of dropped in the last week and a half or so.
Yeah, so this patch was actually gigantic, but it is near identical to the patch that we saw on the PvE for the Season 2. We covered that really in depth when it hit the PvE because it sort of highlighted all the Season 2 changes. So if you want to get all of the notes more in depth, I recommend checking out that video from, I want to say it was the last episode or within the past 2 or 3 episodes. And we go over that patch for almost, I want to say, half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. But the big things to note on this one is that first off, they did add the new map, Eichenwald, which is a assault escort map. So it's a hybrid set in Germany. Absolutely beautiful. Really open in terms of how you can get to the points. So there are a lot of different routes you can take, but all of them feel really like hallway and building, like small skirmishes. It's a really fun map. So if you haven't played it, check it out. It's also the weekly brawl this week because they want to show it off. So that is on the game now. Season 2 also started. The biggest things to note with Season 2 is that everything got multiplied by 10. So competitive points got multiplied by 10. Rankings got multiplied by 10. The ranking bracket is huge now. Instead of 1 to 100, it's 1 to 5,000 with different brackets in between them. Personally, Veritech and I, we placed about 2,200, which is right in the middle of gold. Gold's 2,000 to 2,500. So give you guys kind of an idea. Check it out. Pretty good scoring system. From what we've played so far, I'm really happy about it. It doesn't really feel as punishing when you lose a game, since there's so much more space to move around.
Yep.
Like losing that one rank, it doesn't feel just gigantic. They also changed it so in competitive, there's no longer overtime and coin flips. Now you just get ties. Ties technically count as a victory, but you get a lot less of everything for them.
Yeah.
So they don't reward you in quite the same way, but you're also not getting punished by the coin flip. As far as Decay is concerned, high-ranking players, Diamond Master and Grandmaster will have Decay. As long as you're within 1,000 competitive points of other players, you'll be able to queue with them, except for Grandmaster and Master, which it has to be within 500. There were some map changes, just to minor things on like Temple of Anubis, New Bombies, some time things like that. Like I said, already mentioned the competitive point changes. As far as hero changes are concerned, ultimates that consume the ultimate meter when activated will now drain more fast. They reverted a recent change that reduced the size of heroes' projectiles. Most hero abilities will no longer interrupt quick melee, so you can't use it to reset, and then ultimate abilities will now interrupt quick melee attacks. So once again, they're trying to get rid of that quick auto attack reset burst that a lot of people, at least at a higher level, that you see taking out players so quickly. Diva had her defense matrix reworked slightly. There's a longer delay before regenerating. Hanzo will now experience a 30% decrease in speed while aiming, so he moves a little bit faster now. His projectiles also move faster, but the size of the arrows have been reduced slightly. Maze Blizzard now pierces through barriers, which is extremely important, and the radius has been increased. Though I did see something on Reddit that I did want to mention because I agreed with. With the increase in the radius, people are finding there are a lot more points now on the maps, like in Gibraltar or Eichenwald particularly, where you'll be raised off of the floor that Blizzard is on. So a lot of people are hoping that here soon they'll make it so you can see the entire AoE, even if it's on the floor below you, because you'll still get frozen above it if you're in the circle. You just won't be able to see it. Hopefully that's coming soon since Blizzard just got buffed. Deadeye for McCree now drains over a quarter of a second period instead of doing the 50% and then the 50%, so it works like everybody else's does. They increased the Mercy's healing on her Caduceus staff by 20%. Resurrect allies will now be able to maneuver a lot faster after being resurrected and have a larger window of invulnerability to reset up. They nerfed Genji rather hard. Like I said, we talked about all of these in depth, so I'm just going to kind of glaze over them, as it were. But Genji no longer gets double jump resets when he climbs walls. Swift Strike no longer deals damage to traps and cannot be used to bypass Steel Trap. And once again, cannot interrupt quick melee. And they reduced the duration of Dragon Blade from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. As far as Lucio is concerned, they nerfed the movement speed boost. As far as Roadhog is concerned, they kind of recoded the way hook works. So now if you get hooked but the target is out of Roadhog's line of sight, it'll pull the target to where they got hooked to instead of to Roadhog. And for those of you who might have not had that interaction, and unfortunately I still had one yesterday, so it's not perfect yet, there was a lot of cases where Roadhog was hooking a moving target that would like wrap around a corner on the other side of a building and then just get torn through time and space straight to Roadhog. So they're trying to reduce the amount that you see those cheap hooks happen. Soldier 76, bullet spread now happens more quickly when unloading fully automatic rounds. So you want to keep the 3-shot burst instead of full automatic if you want to keep your accuracy. They also increased the bullet spread recovery time, though, since it happens faster. They want to kind of make it so if you do hit the spread really badly, you can recover quicker. Some more changes to Zenyatta just because he was really, really strong. They nerfed Orb of Discord from 50% to 30%, and they also increased his auto attack damage from 40 to 46. So with Zenyatta, it's now he still feels exactly the same when dueling one-on-one, but he doesn't just instantly melt tanks. I know that seems like quite a lot in terms of balancing, but this is stuff that was played around a lot on PvE, and we did a lot of discussion with. I don't know about you, but it feels really good on live right now. I'm noticing a pretty wide variance in healing combinations. We're not just seeing Lucio Zen every game. We're seeing a pretty fair mix of Lucio, Zenyatta, Mercy, and even Symmetra now. We're seeing Symmetra pretty commonly on defense, on assault maps, which I think is cool. The Genji nerfs feel totally fair. A good friend of ours, Luke, he pretty much only plays Mercy and Genji. And he was talking about how he was really worried that it was going to kill him. And honestly, they kind of only nerfed things that felt unfair. So even though you think, that's a quarter of his ultimate duration, 8 to 6 seconds, all that really changes. It's the same duration as like Sound Barrier and other ults like that. So it's still really effective. Like 6 seconds, it's still more than enough to wipe the team. It just kind of brings them into line.
Yeah. I mean, it does. It feels really good on live, and a lot of these changes you don't even really notice because in the flow of the game and how action happens, you don't really see it. Like I've been playing a lot of Zenyatta lately. He doesn't feel any different to me. So I mean, it just I still whiff over people's shoulders constantly. So I mean that unless they buff his orbs to make them the size of basketballs, I'm still gonna miss. But I mean, these changes, it's just balance and quality of life. It doesn't really make anybody super strong, anybody super weak. The Rest in Peace Genji patch, as this has been coined, now that it's on live. It also just makes Genji easier to deal with. It doesn't really change how he's played. Like as you said, our friend Luke, he said that the 2 seconds difference on Dragon Blade, he didn't even really notice it. Like you don't really notice it because it's just so fast paced. Anyways, it's just there's not that big of a difference. When you're playing, it feels like Overwatch, and that's the beauty of this team and the Overwatch team, and the fact that when they do these balances, it just feels like Overwatch. I mean, it doesn't feel like they break anything in the game. It's awesome, with the exception of McCree when he had that like 6-week period where he was just a must pick because he was super like snipey and just super damaging and. But other than that,
but they have problems with McCree. I do want to compliment Blizzard's balancing team as well because, as I've mentioned multiple times on this show, my gaming background's in MOBAs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so constant balancing is something I'm very familiar with. And as far as I'm concerned, balancing mainly falls into one of 2 categories. And I mean no offense to anybody involved in either of these. I figure there's the right game strategy where you balance your game around the competitive meta and the people who are, making money off of it that way. Or there's the Valve way of balancing games like Dota 2, where if somebody's overpowered, then you just buff a million other people to bring them up to par. You know what I mean? And I will admit I was slightly nervous when this patch hit PTR, and playing it on PTR and seeing it on live, it makes me feel really good because even though we're seeing a majority of nerfs and an overall decrease in DPS since heroes can't interrupt quick melee attacks anymore, nothing feels broken. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when we first started playing the game in that it feels like every hero's viable again. And I mean, admittingly, for a while there, that was, back in the days of double Winston, double Lucio, double Reaper, but it feels healthy. Nobody really feels overpowered. It doesn't feel like there's a definitive tier system. It feels good. Mm-hmm. I like seeing Roadhog in games now. I like seeing 76 and Pharah again. You know what I mean? It's really cool. It's super neat seeing pubs pick Symmetra. Like, how often did you see that? You know what I mean? And then the majority of our games yesterday on the assault maps, we saw defensive Symmetras. So I think it's cool. I think they're doing a really good job of being delicate and accurate with their balancing.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And one other thing that I'll just kind of touch base on, and we've already, like you said, we covered it extensively already, but Watchpoint Gibraltar's first checkpoint's been removed. It just it makes the map move a little bit more flowy. I haven't played a ton on that map since the patch has gone live. I think I played once. I didn't notice it mainly because we just stomped the team. They didn't even get to the first checkpoint.
Yeah, that was not a good ranked game. I've played a few more games than you have on it,
Yeah.
and it it's good and it's bad. I think it is overwhelmingly good. Let me clarify that. But it was strange when it was there before because you would have this situation where you'd hit the first checkpoint, but your spawn wouldn't move. So it didn't necessarily feel like you made any progress. You've just kind of rounded a corner, you know what I mean? And so now there's not that awkwardness with the first checkpoint. It's not this, well, we've kind of done something when you really haven't, and there's just no real reward for it at all.
Yeah.
So I think it makes the map feel healthier in that the first checkpoint actually has a lot of weight to it now. So I think it's good. Though admittingly, it does make it a little bit harder on the uphill push because they can actually push you back under that dip.
It's true.
But even then, I mean, it's negligible. I think it's a good change.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I mean, pretty much, again, another patch where it just feels really solid and it doesn't break the game. It doesn't change the quality of the game. I really like the decisions they're making. It makes it a fun game, and I really enjoy playing it still, even though we've been playing it for like 7.5 months now.
Yeah.
Still, I still enjoy it as much as I did when I first started playing.
I mean, the game is amazing. I don't want to sound like a broken record, especially considering how many times we've talked about it on the episode, but like, I am extremely picky about the first-person shooters I play.
Yeah.
And the amount of care and just attention to detail, everything about the game is so satisfying to me. It's not really surprising to me to see how wildly successful the game is. It's not really surprising to me to see how successful and quickly the esports scene is growing around the game. Overwatch is a really fantastic product, and it's a game I enjoy playing immensely.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the patch. We had talked about it before. I mean, other than that, it's been pretty quiet. People just enjoying the second season of competitive. I mean, us included. It's just, it's a good time. I mean, really liking the season. It was
a little weird. It was a little weird that week or two that we didn't have it, and everybody was just playing super trolly quick match games. Every game you would go into would have like 2 bastions on attack and 3 torbs on defense. So it's nice that the competitive season has started up again. Yeah. Order has been restored.
it feels good to have it back, and I actually like this system more than the old system.
Oh, it feels a lot better. It really. The old system just felt so. I mean, I don't want to use this term willy-nilly, but it felt really unfair because it just felt like it punished you so hard whenever you lost a game.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like you got no real reward for playing either. And then it was also terrible because, we're looking at a 1-to-100 system where the best player in the world, the best players in the world are rarely, if ever, breaking 90. So, like, it's just, I think it's a lot better. I think it's a lot healthier for the people playing the game. I think it's a lot healthier for Blizzard in terms of balancing rewards and brackets. It's a better system all around. I love it.
I definitely agree. Well, we normally have our last segment be the community spotlight, and usually we each pick 1 or 2 things, but because I've been so crazed about Legion, I totally forgot to do it. Luckily, you did not, so why don't you go ahead and cover the stuff that really kind of tickled your fancy this week?
Yeah, mainly art stuff this week, no videos or anything like that. The first thing I wanted to highlight was a little comic called Heroes Never Die by Luapin. Also in advance, sorry if I end up butchering anybody's name. But it's over on Tumblr if you want to go check it out. It's a really funny comic. The Reddit thread that it came from, the discussion was, could you imagine what it would be like if heroes' spells were accurate to their lore? And so Mercy goes, heroes never die, and reses her whole team, but Reaper's still lying there dead. And Zarya goes, Reaper is still down, and Mercy just smiles and goes, I know what I said.
Yeah.
So I love the comic a lot. The rest of their work is really good too, so go ahead and check that out over on Tumblr. The second thing I wanted to highlight was a little piece called Faria and Ana Amari, and it's an absolutely beautiful piece, Farah and Ana. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. It's super adorable. It's cuter than the spray in game, you know what I mean? And just, I don't know, personally, that's one of my favorite relationships in the game because you actually feel it. You know what I mean? Whenever they interact or you play on any of the maps, like it's talked about all the time. So I love anything that has the two of them put together. I think it's great. So check that out. It's by, I'm going to butcher this so bad, Siamano 240 over there on DeviantArt. So go ahead and give it a peek if you'd like. The third one I wanted to take a look at was called Anna Mari Reinhardt by Katoyo. Like I said, I'm so bad at English, guys, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering these. But this is another one, super detailed, hyper-realistic. And it's Reinhardt standing in like an aggressive pose, maybe after a charge, like armor riddled with bullets. You can see the smoke and the fire coming out of his rocket pack, and Anna's leaping over him. I like it because, in my opinion, the Anna Reinhardt ult combination is just one of the most satisfying things in the game. It's one of those examples. It's like Pharah Mercy, and when you think of like comboed characters, you think Anna Reinhardt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I like the art because A, it's detailed, and B, anything mid fight is cool in my books. You know what I mean? So if you want to go check that out over on DeviantArt, it's there. And then the last one, and this was more for me than anybody else, was called Sombra Unmasked by Chaser the Treeman. And I'm a fan of like classic 90s anime. And as you guys know, we've been talking about it for 3 weeks now. They've been teasing Sombra relentlessly. And everyone's trying to figure out who's Sombra, who's behind the mask, all this stuff. And so Chaser the Tree Man did this piece where it is Ed from Cowboy Bebop lifting up the Sombra mask and making the shh gesture with all of the skulls behind her and everything like that. So if you're familiar with Cowboy Bebop, it fits with the character line. It's a really funny combination in my book. So if you want to check that out, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the show or the game. And in my opinion, that was some of the better stuff I've seen the past week or two as far as the community is concerned.
Yeah, and I saw the Anna Reinhardt one. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, really detailed. It would make like a sick poster, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's another one that popped up, and I don't have the direct link to it, guys, but if you want to, it's still on Reddit. You can just search for it in the Overwatch subreddit. It's called The Death of Diva, and pretty much it's super realistic. You know, it's got Soldier 76 holding the dying or dead body of Diva, and you can see his visor's just got this like crack and bullet hole in it, and they both are just bloodied and shredded, and like it looks really good. I actually consider changing out my current background, which is Diva repairing her mech after a match, with this one. The only problem is it wasn't in landscape, it was in portrait, so it was like, I didn't want the black area, but it looks really sick, and I recommend you guys go check it out. It's really awesome. But I mean, overall, again, another week of the community putting out awesome Overwatch fan art and content, and I really love the art too. I mean, like I'm subscribed on Twitter, you know, I follow all the art accounts. Like I see all the art when it comes out. I mean, the talent is just limitless in this community, and definitely awesome. So, but when we are not doing the Guardians, where can people find you, One Eye?
Yeah, I am pretty easy to reach on Twitter. My handle is at NA1eye, so if anybody wants to reach me, that's a good way to do it. When I'm not doing this, I'm streaming with Veritech during the week, Monday through Thursdays, and then I'm also working with my boys over at Multitapped. One big thing we do over there is our weekly podcast. We do those Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Mountain, 11 Eastern. Like I said, apologies for being so horrifically sick this week, guys. I know I sound like utter death. I did not sound any better this week's Multitap podcast, so apologies if that's the one you go listen to as well. But love the guys over there at Multitap. Good stuff. Bunch of people putting out new videos if you want to check out Lucy's Showcase or Dubious Gaming. And then the other thing is I like to give a little teaser for the next Multitap podcast to people who watch. And next week's episode, we're going to be discussing arcade memories. So like the old Aladdin's castles and things like that. Nice. So if you want to, check me out there, that's a good place to do it.
Yeah, Multitap is awesome. Like, I tune in when I can, and I forget a lot of the times because I am a busy father of four, and we do our daily vlogs, and I'm having to make those, and I'm streaming, so I forget a lot. But this past week's Multitap was awesome. I loved it. Like, and the one before that was awesome, too. Getting Rewind Mike revved up about Metal Gear Solid and sequels.
Yeah,
man.
I love those boys. Like, everybody in Multitapped are wildly talented for each. Like, they're all very different. It's a very eclectic group. I love working with them.
Yep.
But Rewind Mike and Luke, I swear, are like the old married couple of Multitapped. I love getting them in rooms together. Oh, it's the best. I love those guys.
Yep. They definitely have some good banner, and I like Multitap. So guys, definitely go check it out if you get a chance. It's really good. A lot of fun. They cover a lot of different topics. But as for me, Veritech GG across the board. YouTube.com, gaming.youtube.com/VeritechGG. You can catch me at twitch.tv/VeritechGG, on Twitter at VeritechGG. Pretty much just type in Veritech GG on the internet. It'll pull me up. Also, something that I have known about for a couple of days now, and I've just kind of been keeping it under my belt, but the Guardians podcast will be featured on the October 25th episode of Realm Maintenance. I don't know if many of you know what Realm Maintenance is. It's a pretty large podcast that deals with a lot of Blizzard stuff, mainly World of Warcraft. There's some StarCraft podcasts that are under that banner, but I was reached out to by the founder of Realm Maintenance Podcast to ask if I would be interested in having our show featured. So on October 25th, we will be the featured podcast for that day. And then there are some other stuff I can't. It's confusing. I can't say anything about it yet, but it's coming, and hopefully soon I'll be able to give you guys more updates. But you can also catch us live Friday nights. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. The Guardians on Twitch TV/VeritechGG, and again on YouTube. We might be going exclusively to Twitch. I'm not sure. But YouTube is a lot of fun. It gives a lot more avenues for people to watch. And then for those who can't catch it live, you can search for us on Spreaker, on Google Music, and also on iTunes. Just search for The Guardians. I upload every episode within minutes of us being done live on Friday nights. You can catch us there. But for my buddy One Eye, I am Veritech saying we will see you guys next Friday.